Okay, so I'm back, day two. And so I said yesterday that I was just streaming live on LinkedIn, and it turns out I'm streaming live on LinkedIn and on Facebook as well. So I just wanted to clarify that. However, you're following my company Evolve. This weekly series will be showing up on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So welcome back. Day two of transforming the 5 biggest blind spots in your diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. And so yesterday I kicked off this series, which will be happening every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I kicked off the series with the first blind spot, which was playing it safe. And to recap playing it safe, this is such a blind spot because it's people who are more committed to being in their comfort zone than taking a risk, being creative, being innovative, being resourceful, and speaking their mind. So when it comes to DEI, this challenges and does not support inclusion. So when people are committed to playing it safe, there will be a lack of inclusion popping up within your culture and your DEI strategy. Because when people are when they're in the playing safe blind spot, they are not authentic. They don't use their voice, they don't share their ideas, they don't ask questions, and they have this level of an anxiety of, I don't fit in, or I'll do whatever it takes to fit in. And so when we think about diversity, we think not only about the identifiers, like what identifies us as diverse, like our race, our age, our sex, gender, or sexuality, disability, and so on and so forth, but it's also about our diversity of thought. And if we are hiring and we have this rich, diverse team of people, and people are playing it safe, we are not getting much. The ROI on our DEI, that's kind of cute. The ROI on our DEI strategy is diminished. So the purpose of implementing and creating a DEI strategy or initiative in your company to begin with is to unlock more potential and more performance in your people and in your culture strategy and in your brand perception. So today, we're going to move on to the second blind spot, which is avoiding pain. And now I know avoiding pain might sound like it doesn't fit within the workplace. It doesn't sound like something we experience in the workplace unless maybe we're dealing with hot objects or something like that. And so what I mean by avoiding pain, and there's 2 spectrums, there's 2 ends of the spectrum that I'm going to talk about today. But people who are avoiding pain, and this is in their blind spot, they are avoiding difficult conversations, difficult experiences, and difficult work. And so they get uncomfortable in the space of when something becomes hard or challenging, they avoid it. So they either just do mediocre work, they say yes. So this sounds like it sounds similar to playing it safe, yet it's different. And here's the thing about all 5 of the blind spots, they are connected, yet they show up in different ways. And when you're able to distinguish what blind spot you or the person is experiencing, you'll understand how to support and potentially transform that blind spot so that it turns into growth, development, performance, results, and all those great things that we look to experience from our DEI strategy. And so when we think of, avoiding pain, we're avoiding difficult conversations, stressful interactions, we just avoid it. And so if there is something challenging coming up, challenging project, challenging team member, the person who is avoiding pain will avoid it. And so they will not be clear, they will not be communicative, they most likely may not be collaborative. And so this diminishes the quality of the work, the quality of the relationship. And so the relationships turn into transactional relationships. So the two ends of the spectrum. So transactional relationships means I'm just going to get what I need and that's it. Or I'm going to give you what you need and that's it. I'm not going to go any further. I'm not going to go any questions. There's no context. And I don't know about you, but context really supports me. And, the level of companies and leaders that I work with, context is everything. We can be given instructions and given work to cause and create, yet if we don't have the context, there's a high probability that we might be going in many different directions rather than the vision and the goal of where the project and the work gets to go. And so when relationships become transactional, we lose a lot of the diversity, we lose the inclusion, and we lose the level of the potential of where that work gets to go. So again, we lose the creativity, the innovation, the resourcefulness, and in some cases, the resilience it takes and the agility it takes to move and shift and pivot within the work or the project, whatever it is. And this when I think of this one, I think of sales. And I remember my first job as a salesperson in New York City, and it was inside sales. We had a cold call. And I remember the minute someone would actually pick up, when I was connected to a decision maker in the very beginning, I would hang up. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. So imagine, and I know there's no one on your team that extreme. I mean, I was 23 at the time, working in the Empire State Building for a sports hospitality company. So I was terrified and I was avoiding the pain. And for me, it wasn't in my blind spot, but it was in the blind spot of the company because they didn't know that this is how I was showing up. So my role and what they were compensating me for was sales and transactions. And really, I was not performing that, yet they didn't know. I mean, eventually, as months went by, and in the beginning months, my sales, I was not meeting my quota and my goal. So when we think of transactional relationships, we're not getting into the relationship. We're getting in and getting out because we want to avoid the pain. We want to avoid the discomfort. And this blind spot can suck the life out of relationships, because when things are transactional, there is technically no real relationship, no deep connected relationship. And in the workplace, this matters. This matters internally with culture, how we relate to each other. And then if anyone, and most people in a company have some sort of relationship with the outside world, right? External relationship, whether it's with clients, existing clients, supporting existing clients, or prospective clients, going out into your marketplace to continue to offer whatever it is that your company offers, vendors, the partners that keep your company going, and then the marketplace. I mean, I'm sure everyone in your company is on social media in some way, shape, or form, and this blind spot will let you know also, are they talking about our company, and how are they talking about our company, and not necessarily just our product or our service, but about their experience within the company. Are they like loving going to work, or is every Monday they're posting something on social media? Oh, another Monday, or when Friday comes, they're so excited to like leave and pop out at 5 o'clock, whatever that case may be. And so there are two ends of this spectrum when it comes to avoiding pain. The first, I talked a bunch about the first, which is the person who is checked out, going through the motions. And this person is also distracted. So when we think of how low the employee engagement levels are in this country, as I shared last week in a post that I did, I think the all-time high over the past 12 years has been 34%. And we get our numbers from Gallup, which is right down the street. I love that Gallup is right down the street. And so when we think about 34% is the high, the average high across this country, the United States, that again, we're leaving over 65% of engagement opportunities on the table. And avoiding pain is the biggest blind spot that contributes to low engagement, employee engagement levels. And it's because they're checked out, going through the motions, easily distracted. So these are the people who do the bare minimum. the bare minimum or even less just to avoid, asking a question. So they might just turn in work that may not even be, accurate, because they'd rather just turn the work in than ask a question, rather turn the work in than and hope you don't catch it or a client doesn't catch it and keep that pattern going. And then they're also, they also distract others, because if they're avoiding pain, they easily distract others, talking about something they are comfortable with. So they might talk about sports or, I don't know, entertainment or the weather or traffic. They'll start talking about things that they are comfortable with. And these, back in the day, we would call these water cooler conversations, which are great. Yet if this is their MO, this is what they're committed to, is only having these kind of conversations, employee engagement goes down, their performance and their potential is not there. It's not unlocked. And then on the other side of the spectrum of people who avoid pain are the people who check their emotions at the door. And they come in, they don't want to feel anything. And these are the people who tend to have no empathy. And they tend to steamroll and bulldoze over people. Like they're just overly direct, where you think, oh my gosh, like it seems super mechanical, super robotic. And even if there is something going on, they are not sensitive to it. And so when we think about diversity and inclusion, this is an issue. This is a huge challenge, because if someone is just avoiding pain, this is just their blind spot, it's not a bad thing, and they're showing up without their emotions in the workplace, they could be creating people feeling not that they don't fit in or they don't belong. They could have a lot of people feeling wrong, feeling bad about themselves. And when we think deep about diversity and inclusion, these are the pillars. These are the things to think about, because it's not just about the physical makeup of your people experience, of your human resources. It's also, are we unlocking, as I said earlier, their diversity of thought and their diversity of ideas? And if people are experiencing other people in the workplace as emotionless, steamrolling them, bulldozing them, and not considering any, or not being open to any questions, because a question would have them have to think deeper and have to consider other people in the moment. And really, the research shows no one likes working with these people. We work with them, but we don't like it, so we avoid them. We send them an email rather than stop by their office, or we send them an email rather than picking up the phone and calling them or hopping on Zoom. And so the relationship becomes more and more transactional rather than a relationship. And this blind spot, when people show up without their emotions in the workplace, and I know for a lot of people, especially if you're in my age range or higher, you're a Gen X or higher, this is the way things were back in the 80s and 90s. That's when I was in the workplace. And even the early 2000s, it was quite okay and quite normal to check your emotions at the door. Yet it doesn't work. I mean, if there's a way you can actually check your emotions at the door without, and to be honest, people who are avoiding pain in checking their emotions, they feel them, but they suppress them really quickly. They feel it, suppress it, because of course they have emotions. Of course they feel something, but they suppress it in the moment to avoid the pain of being challenged, to avoid the pain of going above and beyond. And so this blind spot, this end of the spectrum of the blind spot, will cause other people in your company to avoid pain and to play it safe. And so when we think about it, what are the possibilities to transform this? And so the questions we ask the individual and the questions we ask the company is, does your culture and does your people experience support vulnerability? Are people able to be vulnerable and say, hey, I don't know, or I have a question because I'm confused or I'm lost? Does your culture, does your team culture, your company culture support that kind of experience? And really, is your team set up, is your communication, is your leadership set up to be open to other possibilities to reframe? Have you supported your team in how to reframe certain things that don't work? So when people are avoiding pain, they hold back because they are afraid to feel or afraid to get hurt. So when we're able to provide ways for them to reframe questions or reframe ideas, because maybe the way that they think they're going to express themselves may not have them fit in, may not have them feel included, or, with yesterday's playing it safe, may have them fail. If there's an opportunity for them to understand how to reframe questions or to add context to questions or ideas, that supports transforming this blind spot. And then also, calling people forward in this space. So calling people forward on the bulldozing, on the steamrolling, and on the mediocrity. So the people who are just going through the motions, and calling them forward in an empowering, curious way, not a way to call them out. So we don't call anyone out, we call them forward. And I think of the quote, this was given to me by Jen, who works with me. She sent me this quote from Anas Nin, and it says, "And then the day came when the risk to remain in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And so most people who are avoiding pain, they don't want it to be this way. They're not trying to be this way consciously or proactively. This is not their choice. And so it takes us, the leader, the person who is committed to your diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, to step in and call people forward, access their vulnerability, access their ability to reframe in the moment, and really access their emotional intelligence. This, if there was a way for people to really access and really activate their emotional intelligence, you would not see this one in the workplace, in your culture specifically. So some of the questions we ask also is, how connected is the person to your company? Like, are they connected to your company's vision? Are they connected and aligned with your company's mission? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? And what's the effectiveness of your feedback? So we talked about feedback yesterday with the playing it safe blind spot. And so today that really supports the avoiding pain blind spot as well. A supportive culture that has empowering feedback. And not just as a mechanism to give an individual, but also for the individual to give to the company, to the culture, to the experience, the people experience. And really, what is the alignment of unity? Are your people connected with each other? Because when people are avoiding pain, again, their relationships are transactional. They are not connected with each other. And then, so if they're not connected with each other, what might that experience be externally with the clients, potential clients, vendors, marketplace, like how they're showing up to support your brand perception? And so avoiding pain, again, is a huge blind spot. And this one is one of the biggest, I believe, because the reason it shows up is because there are no checks and balances for this one. When people are avoiding pain, turning in mediocre work, steamrolling, and usually the steamrollers and the bulldozers are some of the top performing people, or they're in managerial roles, so there are no checks and balances. That's where HR and a DEI leader can really support and transform this. Because if there is turnover due to this is one of the highest turnover. This blind spot leads to a lot of turnover. That an HR leader or a DEI leader can really support in this area. And so avoiding pain is the second blind spot. And the third one I'm going to be sharing tomorrow is looking good. And this is such a diverse blind spot, and it goes in so many different directions. And I'm curious, when you think about playing it safe and avoiding pain, that, where do you see this on your team? And how does this show up for you? And keep considering those two questions as we move into the third blind spot of playing it safe tomorrow. So I will see you tomorrow. You can post any comments or questions you have in the comments. You can also reach out to us directly at culture@evolveeq.com. And I will see you soon. Have a great day, everyone.